Hey everyone, it's Sun Types, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the current standard meta, which is a bit of a more competitive video. I normally do more casual stuff, but I mean, this will affect like decks you see on the ladder if you play on PTCGO, and just cool decks to try out and look out for that you might play against. And we'll probably show off some cool concepts and decks that are new because it's the Lost Origin set, which is the newest set, recently came out like a week ago. So it's the meta is really interesting, and I'm just looking on Limitless here. I'll have a link down to in the description probably to Limitless, and it's just a really useful website. It just has tournament data, and they host tournaments and just tons of like decks. So and you can see all these different decks, and there's tons of each different deck, right? So it's really good. And first of all, we see a lot of Mew and Palkia, which is to be expected. We also see Cure and Palkia. The regular Palkia is Palkia and Teleon. You see like Ice Rider Palkia. I'm sure there's some other Palkia decks. And there might be some other Mew decks. Probably not, though. But we see Palkia with Kyurem, which is really interesting. It's not played a ton. I mean, it's the 5th most played deck, so that's pretty good. Not as much as the non-Kyurem build, but Kyurem VMAX is an interesting card. And it says, once during your turn, you can discard the top card of your deck. And if that's a water energy, attach it to one of your Pokemon. If it's not a water energy, you just mill the card from your deck, which probably isn't something you want to do. But you can accelerate water energy, and you can use this with every Kyurem. You can stack your deck with a Rangaroo, which is pretty cool, and some other ways. And then it has an attack very similar to Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX. It does 120 damage for 3 water, so that's a pretty hefty attack cost. But you got Palkia V-Star to accelerate, and Kyurem VMAX itself. And you do 50 for each energy for each water energy you discard from this Pokemon. And you can do, or I guess it's each energy card, so that could make a difference, but it probably won't. And then you can just discard 3 to hit a very solid 270. Or you can discard 4 to hit 330, or 320, sorry. And that pretty much one-shots anything. It doesn't one-shot other VMAXs. But, you know, it's fine. And the unlimited damage cap is what makes it really good. And with Palkia, you can just one-shot anything. So that's really cool. We see Palkia and with Kyurem sometimes. I imagine the new Palkia decks, now you can see here, are just like, or the new Palkia and Teleon decks are pretty normal. The Palkia Kyurem decks don't play in Teleon. I'll be showing them off. I'm going to be looking at specific tournaments. But we also see Giratina, Hisuian Zoroark, being 2 very powerful new decks, probably the best 2. The 2 heavy hitters of the set, certainly. They can one-shot anything, have solid health, and obviously very good damage output. We got this Lost Zone box. This was popularized by a number of content creators have made videos on the deck. You'll see it a ton on the ladder, and it's a good deck, though. Assuming Gudra, a new deck, a defensive deck. Reggies are interesting. I don't know if there are any Reggie decks that did particularly well in large events, but Reggies, it looks like there aren't. But Reggies are interesting. I'll take a quick look at a list here. And you see it plays a Radiant Charizard. Normally you only want Reggies because you want to be using Regigigas to accelerate, but Radiant Charizard can be gotten to play with Thornton, which is a really cool supporter. If you saw my video with the Arceus Yveltal deck, you saw Thornton, and you switch a Pokemon that you haven't played with one of your Pokemon in your discard, so you'll accelerate to one of your Reggies and switch it with Radiant Charizard. Some decks use Yveltal, the same Yveltal I used. Either one's fine, but gives you a bit more like versatility. The deck's a bit awkward to play, though. And we got Flying Pikachu and Arceus and Teleon, but Arceus is making up a lower share. You see some other, like Duraludon, regular Arceus Giratina, but there's less Arceus. There's a lot of Zoroark. Okay, so the thing about Zoroark here, which is a bit interesting, and I'm looking for Arcanine, which is pretty much Zoroark. This is not Zoroark. This is Magzone V-Star. I was definitely... it is Zoroark. It's not Hisuian Arcanine. But this list is Hisuian Arcanine, and it just has a cool attack that says if you have no cards in your hand, you do 160 damage for free. And that also hits a decent weakness. This list apparently plays other stuff, but that's fine. And that's pretty much all their stuff there is. Cramorant is like the Lost Zone box. This is also Lost Zone box. more Arceus. There's some new decks here that are kind of cool that I'm probably going to show off on my channel, but that's about it. So let's look at the tournaments. Going to look at the once they're completed. Let's see. We need online tournaments, obviously TCG, standard, and probably it's got to be in the past week. And then let's see. I believe this is I'm going to look at the ones that are over 100 people and that are the new format, and just look at the top 8 here. So this one was essentially the first big one, the Tournament of Doom, and we see Arceus doing well here. Let's take a look at this Arceus Aggron list, which is really cool, or pretty cool. It's not like a brand new deck, but you got Aggron VMAX, which isn't that interesting, and Aggron V, which also isn't that interesting. It does 300 for 5 if your opponent has any damage counters, or it's just 150. That's pretty much it. And this Aggron VMAX also can do 270. It has more health than your other Pokemon, which is the main reason you use it. And pretty much it's Arceus V-Star. There aren't any copies of Sharon's Care, so you can't heal off your Arceus, unlike certain Arceus lists. Yeah, probably the Flying Pikachu list plays Sharon's Care. But this Arceus Aggron list just hits hard, hits consistently, does Path and Pumpkaboo, so it can do what it wants when it wants and control the board really well. And then it has like lots of boss research, Marnie, Raihan, so it can just, as I said, be consistent. Not too much to say about the deck. It's not that interesting, but it's something that's a bit unique. And then we got Arceus Straddon, very standard list here. It looks like heavy on healing, so we're seeing that healing's really good. I mean, the other list didn't play healing, but there are certainly some good healing cards and defensive cards. And this list plays the 3 Hyper Motion, 4 Double Turbo, and Crystal Cave. There's less Path to the Peak, which is really good for Duraludon. Obviously, the Arceus decks probably play Path to the Peak, but there's a lot of Lost Zone stuff and ways to counter Path. So it's seeing less play. It'll probably kick up, but it's down right now a bit. Nothing too interesting here. It is good, Walling Special Energy. Decks like Giratina, which you see in Arceus Giratina list 9th, which we won't look at, but probably playing, I'll look at it, I'll show it real quick. It plays Double Turbo Energy, and you're probably using that to attack sometimes anyway, so decks like Arceus Duraludon will be good against that. And then we got a bunch of Mew VMAX lists here. And so Mew VMAX is just, sorry about the coughing in the background. My family's a bit sick right now, but we see Mew VMAX a bit interesting here. We got pretty standard stuff, except no Meloetta, Elisa Sparkle, or Fusion Strike Energy, which is really interesting, going for a very slow pace. And there's survivability, and there's some interesting cards I need to talk about here. Most of this looks pretty normal. You know, the Marnie's a bit interesting, but that's just a replacement for the Elisa Sparkle. But then the big thing here, it has to be the Oricorio and the big Parasol. Used to counter Giratina V-Star. So Giratina V-Star can hit 310 with a choice belt. You could stick a big charm, but they could tool scrapper it, so you have Oricorio. And then with their V-Star power, if they have 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone, they'll just one-shot you instantly, but you use Big Parasol, and you're immune to effects of attack, so they just won't do anything at that point. So that's why the list looks like that. And then Lost City, and then you can heal off with copying Mew V's Psychic Leap attack with Mew VMAX, and then just looping Double Turbo Energy. You have Silene if your opponent is somehow able to stop that. Keep in mind, though, if you're against Straddon, VMAX are going to struggle. You can use a Mew VMAX to copy your bench Mew VMAX, use Max Miracle, which hits through effects, but you're going to be like 3-shotting the Duraludon probably. So that's pretty brutal, and you can heal, but then you're gonna lose if you heal, because you won't be doing any damage. So that's unfortunate for you, but it's not the worst with the hitting through effects plus Power Tablet plus Choice Belt. You can eventually hit through them. But then we also have the Lost City tech. Rose Tower is the regular stadium, just drawing some cards. It might be the best stadium. I don't really know, but Lost City here is really good for It's another counter card to the Drapion V. And Drapion V is a Pokemon V. It essentially just one-shots Mew VMAX, or pretty much all your Pokemon, for 0 energy. So that's really bad for you. You can deal with it, though. It's only a Pokemon V, so you can one-shot it, not too bad. But then your opponent can Ordinary Rod it back. And what Lost City does is says whenever a Pokemon's knocked out, when the stadium's in play, put that Pokemon into the Lost Zone instead of the discard pile, so your opponent can't get it back. And then at that point, your opponent won't be able to one-shot your MV maxes, and you can go ahead and win from there. And it's also really good because it's a stadium, but the effect is important during your turn. So even if your opponent bumps it, it'll serve its purpose. So nothing crazy there, but certainly some interesting techs and counters. This list looks very standard. We see the Oricorio, which kind of helps against Giratina, but none of that. No big Parasol. We see 2 Lost Cities, the counter to the Drapion V, and just a general good stadium, but nothing crazy. We see they opt for only 2 boss and Pokemon Catcher. Pretty much the same thing, but it's you can discard it with Chromatic, you can thin it from your hand easier, stuff like that, but not too much to say there. And then you got this Flying Pikachu list, and Flying Pikachu is an interesting deck. It won the World Championship if you follow that, and it's got the Flying Pikachu, the Arceus, the Crobat, and Hisuian Decidueye V-Star. No Sharon's Care here, actually. So there are some like healing lists. As I said, the Straddon list and the Mew list were kind of healing, but this one actually doesn't go for the healing route. Please, let's pass the peak. So it looks like it's more of an aggressive Flying Pikachu list. Only plays 1 switch as well. I guess that's what it always played, but you see it has just good options. 3 bosses, a bit higher than usual. Normal counters, Flying Pikachu to basic decks, which there are a number of, as well as Palkia, Crobat, of course, counter to Mew, and Hisuian Decidueye V-Star counter to Arceus. The rest of this stuff here is pretty normal. We got Manaphy, which is interesting to stop bench damage. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure why that's in the deck, but it's fine, I'm sure it could be useful. I'm not sure exactly what it's in there for, though. Maybe it's Palkia. No, probably not. I'm not sure. That's fine, though. Another Mew list, though, which is that's a lot of Mew. This is stock standard. You got the Lost City. Also plays Lost Vacuum, though. An interesting new card. So when you play it, you have to lasso another card from your hand, which honestly isn't that bad. And from you, it thins your hand, so that's cool. And you discard you lasso a tool or a stadium in play. So if your opponent's got Path, you can get rid of that. It's just another stadium bump. Could be used as like a tool scrapper if you need to. And that's about it. The rest of this looks pretty normal. Hisuian Decidueye a V-Star list here now, though. This looks like it's one of the, slower lists. If you go second, you can hide behind Diancie, which stops your opponent from bossing you, so that's good. It's got I'll show the Hisuian Zoroark V-Star. It does 50 for each Pokemon you have that has any damage counters on it. And so you just want to get damage on all your Pokemon, or as many as you need to get the KO. And then its V-Star power is just Professor's Research, discard, draw 7. So that's good. And you can get the damage counters on a few ways. First of all, you got Gape Drop Bog. Whenever you play a Pokemon, you put 2 damage counters on it, which is cool. Then you got this Gengar. It's new. And with its ability Netherworld Gate, if it's in the discard, you can put it on the bench and put 3 damage counters on it. And that's really good because, well, 1, you get a stage 2 into play for free. I don't think you can attack with it in this list, but it's not the worst. And then you can get damage on yourself, so that's good. And it also comes back if it gets KO'd, so that's cool. It's attack Screaming Circle. You put 2 damage counters on. It essentially does 20 for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. It's damage counters, so it can be used to hit through certain effects, but can also be blocked by other things. So that's something. It looks like they can attack with it. It plays a couple of Psychic Energy. So as a single price attacker, it's not the worst. It's not the best, but it's fine. And then you have Damage Pump, and move up to 2 damage counters from one of your Pokemon to one of your other Pokemon. I guess if you can move 2 off of one Pokemon onto 2 different other Pokemon. So like with Gengar, if you start the game and like have a bunch of Pokemon down before you got Gapeshot Bog. You can move a bunch off Gengar. So pretty much just get damage cards on your Pokemon. It has Radiant Hawlucha, which does more damage to VMAX, so you can one-shot VMAX, you can one-shot V-Star. It's just massive damage. It has Choice Belt as well, and nothing crazy here. Kind of a normal, like, deck build. It plays Dunsparce, Manaphy. It's kind of like Arceus, but it hits harder, is a bit less controlly, and it also it damages itself, which is a bit awkward. It has almost no tanking. It has very little tankiness because your attacker will often have damage on it, but it's still a good deck. Here we got Hisuian Gudra V-Star, which is interesting. Another new deck. This one's really good. Hisuian Gudra V-Star, 270 health in the dragon type, so it has no weakness like Duraludon, like Giratina, and it's really good here. You have 270, which isn't that good, but your attack, which is for a Water Lightning and a Colorless, which is a bunch, but not the worst. You can use Melanie and stuff. It does 200, which is not that good. It's Arceus, which is good, but it doesn't accelerate the energy, but you take 80 less. So now you essentially have 350 health, which is massive, and you won't be getting one-shotted almost ever, which is amazing. And then you can also use your ability to heal all damage from that Pokemon as your V-Star power, essentially undo one of your opponent's turns, which is really good. And then I believe this deck is a Lost Zone engine. Yep, plays one of those Cramorant. I should highlight Cramorant. If you have 4 cards in Lost Zone, it attacks for free, just 110. And Comfy, which is the engine. I guess Comfy and Puller's Experiment just put cards in your Lost Zone, and they also draw cards. And then you got Mirage Gate, which is really important for this deck and a number of other decks like Giratina. You accelerate 2 basic energy of different types. In this case, that's good because it's a dragon type from your deck, kind of like Beast Ring, if you remember that card. And then you can only use it if you have 7 or more cards in the Lost Zone, though. So that's why you have the Lost Zone engine. And then Fantina, which you can only use if you have 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone, which is really hard, kind of hard to do. And obviously, you're losing a lot of your deck and can't get it back. But it does a really powerful effect during your opponent's next turn. All your Pokemon take 120 less from your opponent's Pokemon V. In most decks, as I showed, if you look here, all of them are Pokemon V. So, pretty much got like, I guess, 470 health. You're taking 200 less damage, which is just crazy. And it's really impressive. It's got Radiant Greninja to draw more cards. It has Capture Energy to set up better. It has Water Energy, so you can attack with Radiant Greninja, and it's not that hard. So it's got some options. It's a cool little deck. Doesn't play a lot of traditional supporters. I mean, it plays Boss, but it has a singular Monty, a singular Roxanne. The engine looks a bit scared, like weak here. We only see the 3 Quick Ball, the 1 Hisuian Heavy Ball, I believe. You have Colorless Experiment and Comfy to draw you cards, but it's not that strong. I guess we got the Capture Energy, though, which are nice. No Ultra Ball and no Search. I guess it plays for Hisuian Gudra V-Star. I just realized there's a 3-4 line because you can search out the basic, but you can't search out the evolution. So that's really interesting, honestly. Tweaking decks like that and being able to make a decision like I'm going to have more evolutions than basics is really bold, but clearly worked out here. So, got Giratina, Reggie's. We got this cool deck here, which is Clefairy Basculegion, which I will be showing off on my channel, I think, but nothing crazy. I'll be moving on to the next tournament. We can look at some more decks here, though. We got the Kyurem VMAX Palkia deck that I was talking about earlier. It's not anything crazy. As I said, Kyurem VMAX, kind of like Ice Rider, but it also accelerates and can do more damage. A bit higher maintenance. The deck plays 4 Melanie, 4 Irida. It also plays a Nessa, so some kind of interesting stuff there. You see that Lost Vacuum as the Tool Scrapper Path Bump. And we also see Radiant Greninja making a lot of sense here. And then we got that Empoleon V, which just turns off abilities of your opponent's non-rule box basics in the active. It seems really specific, but it's actually really good. It turns off Cramorant's attack and also stops Comfy. It stops the Reggies. It's not that good against Reggies because they can just have Regigigas on the bench. But, I mean, it stops the Regidraco from drawing cards. It turns off Baby Mew. It turns off Miltank, so you can hit through Miltank. It's just a really good card right now that I highly recommend you playing decks that can use it to attack with. Maybe even decks that can't use it to attack with. But probably definitely decks that can use it to attack with. And then pretty standard Palkia stuff, no Inteleon engine, but has tons of search, reading Queen Ninja to draw cards as well as a Crobat, and the Oranguru engine, which is it's pretty good. It's not that no Rotom phone. I feel like the Rotom phone could be here. Good synergy with Oranguru, but aside from that, it's fine. Giratina, and I believe this is Professor Poke who played this, who's another YouTuber, who's pretty cool. And this list is interesting. You know, and it's standard Giratina V-Star stuff, but you got Giratina here, just being able to do the big damage, and this is the first look at it. Obviously, did well in the tournament, and you can do the 280 damage for Grass, Psychic, Colorless, and then you have to Lost Zone 2 energy attached to it, which is pretty brutal because you can't stream it, but it's not that bad because you have your V-Star power, which is an attack, Star Requiem, which says if you have 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone, which is obviously the case after you attack a bunch of times, but also you're going to be using the Lost Zone engine, like with Comfy and Colorless Experiment, to get cards in there. So by a few turns in, you can use this. Probably after you use Lost Impact, use Star Requiem, and take an instant KO on your opponent's active Pokemon. Obviously, I believe I mentioned earlier that a list like any list with Big Parasol will stop that, but you have your regular attack. And we also see the Drapion V. I wonder if this list played against any Mews, and it did, and it beat it both times, which isn't surprising because it has all these texts. We see no copies of Choice Belt, so Drapion V is the only Mew tech. Hoping that will be able to beat it. So if you played Lost City, this list should still probably win. You can hit it, KO one Mew with Drapion, and then hit another Mew with Giratina or Sableye or something. It also has a Sableye, which is cool if you have 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone. Again, that really high Lost Zone count, you do 12 damage counter spread across the board, which is really good. List plays an equal count of Psychic and Grass Energy. Some lists have definitely played more Psychic than Grass if they're leaning into Sableye. This list only plays one Sableye, one Cramorant. It's a bit scary with this list, though, that I don't think you'll be able to consistently attack turn 2 with Giratina anyways. You can certainly use Star Requiem, but if you don't have 10 cards in the discard, it's useless. And so you need, or Lost Zone, sorry, you need 7 in the Lost Zone for Mirage Gate, and which will allow you to attack. So I guess it sets up, though. You see 4 Colorless Experiment. This list probably still chooses to go first, you gotta assume. Pretty much every deck in the game does. You see the 4 Scoop of Net, 2 Switch, 2 Rope, though. And also, energy can be used to retreat early on to get Comfies. So that's what that list has going on. We see another Giratina list here. This one plays 2 Sableyes, which is kind of interesting. So you can do even more spread. I think the other list only played 1 Rod. This list plays 2 Rod. So it could be like a hardcore single price deck if you do Cramorants and Sableyes and just go with those. We see more Capture Energy, but we see a Lost Vacuum as well to get rid of Stadiums. Training Core. Honestly, I like this list a bit more. They're both fair. No other supporters? I'm going to check. Did this list play other supporters? It did not, no. So the Giratina lists, the ones that are working aren't running other supporters, which is interesting. Not anything crazy with that list there. Now we got our Hisuian Zoroark V-Star. This list plays Mew Engine and Scoop Up Nest, which work well. If you start Mew, which is good, you can scoop it up and then play it back down. If you start, I was going to say Gengar, you can't start Gengar. It's not a basic. If you start Dunsparce, Goon, Mew, scoop it up, you can play it back down with the damage counters now. Kind of interesting. It plays the Goon, which is good, and obviously strong, and then it also plays the Sharon's Care because Hisuian Zoroark V-Star is colorless, so you can use Sharon's Care to heal it back up. It, as I said earlier, does struggle to live through turns, though, so you may want to be careful of that. And then we also have another Hisuian Zoroark V-Star. So the deck is very strong. There are a number of really strong decks from the new set. This one's similar to the first one I showed with Diancie. So if you go second, you can Sipion Diancie. Damage Pump, only 3 damage pump. I think the other list also played 3. This list played Barrel. I think the one list might have played Barrel. It doesn't matter. It matters some, certainly. But you got Hisuian Zoroark V-Star with draw power. You got a Oranguru as an interesting card. It allows you to research or use your V-Star power and not lose cards permanently. You can save stadiums, energies. This list only plays 4 double turbo. No ways of retrieving it. And this list does as well. So that's a bit scary. If obviously if you're against a card like Duraludon, they'll just completely wall you off. But also, if your opponent's able to crushing hammer off those energies, you can just lose. And like against control, you'll probably lose. So that's something to keep in mind. Control with Flannery. This is just Palkia and Teleon. It plays Canceling Cologne. Yeah, I saw this list earlier, and I was a bit surprised by the Canceling Cologne. Comment down below if you know what that's about. I was kind of thinking it could be Miltank, but you have 2 Sword and Shield and Teleons and a Rare Candy, so you can definitely deal with Miltank. It's not too bad. And 1 Canceling Cologne won't do it either, so a bit confused by that. And it only turns off on your turn, so it doesn't stop like Cramorant, Comfy, that kind of thing. Can't imagine you want it against Empoleon V. And speaking of Empoleon V, I would love to see Empoleon V in Palkia. I mean, I personally wouldn't want to play against that, but if I was playing Palkia, I'd have Empoleon V in. It's really good. Shuts down so many decks, and just such a good card. You see a Phantom Waves. There's a lot of special energy, or a decent amount anyway. So Fan's pretty good. The rest of this looks pretty normal. Going with the 1 battle VIP pass, which is fine. It doesn't. You can go 1 or 4. It doesn't really matter. We see another Mew VMAX list. Is this? No. Okay, so this one has the Oricorio, has Lost City. Nothing crazy. Semi-techy. Still with the Meloetta, Elisa Sparkle stuff though. So it's pretty normal. We got this Palkia Kyurem list again. Plays Barrel, which is strong. I mean, it's not as strong as like Inteleon, but it's good. And you got Nessa. This might be the same list as the one before. It looks fine. You know, pretty standard Palkia Barrel. It has that Kyurem thrown in for some power. I think that's the top 8. Anything interesting? We see one of these Arceus Agon lists again. Nothing crazy. We see some other deck. I always like clicking on these. Oh, this is just a Cleaver, which is an instant KO coin flip deck. Nothing crazy here. And then we also have the third tournament we're looking at. Palkia and Teleon winning. No Thornton. I was wondering, we looked at the other list, didn't play Thornton. This one also plays Rare Candy. And Teleon, these 2 Sword and Shield and Teleon, no Canceling Cologne, which I think makes a lot of sense. We see Temple of Sinnoh, which turns off special energy. Instantly plays a capture energy, which is whatever in Palkia, because it doesn't help play Palkia's attack cost. But it's good early game. And so you got Temple of Sinnoh, though, to counter your opponent's decks that are playing special energy. I guess like Hisuian Zoroark V-Star, Arceus V-Star is okay against probably those Lost Zone decks as well that play capture energy. Plays 3 battle VIP pass, right? Going for the heavier counts. Only 3 Irida, which is a bit surprising. We see 2 Marnie, which you usually don't see, and a Raihan. So some interesting cards. A Big Charm. Nothing crazy here, though. We see Rope. That certainly sees playing Palkia, but a bit interesting. Nothing crazy. Another one of the Kyurem lists with Palkia. 4-3 Kyurem, so it's really a Kyurem deck here. Nothing crazy, though. Lost Vacuum, Oranguru, no Barrel there. We got a Lost Zone box deck, which is, these are really interesting. So obviously we got the Comfy. I'll explain this a bit better now, I guess. If it's in the active, you look at the top 2 and put 1 to your hand, the other into your Lost Zone. You close the experiment, you look at the top 5, put 3 into your hand, other 2 in the Lost Zone. So they each get some cards in the Lost Zone, each draw you cards. So they're like an engine for both drawing and setting up to Mirage Gate. And then these lists usually play Battle VIP Pass, which is good because obviously early game, it just turn 1 is an amazing card. After turn 1, it's useless, but you can just Lost Zone it, so not too bad. And then you also have a variety of attackers. Cramorant, which attacks for free. Sableye, which spreads damage around. We got the Drapion V, which is the counter to Mew. But then we have some other interesting things. We got this new Snorlax, which is a bit interesting. It's immune to effects of attacks, which is fine, and it also does 180 for 3, and then it's asleep, and you need to flip double heads to wake up, which is a bit interesting. You're probably getting KO'd, but it's just a strong attacker that can do big damage for only 3 energy. So that's why it's played in this deck. It doesn't play Choice Spell, which is a bit interesting. It plays a Goons and probably 4 Nets, though, so you can one-shot Vs. Probably won't, but it's possible. And as a single prizer, that's really good. And you will need to Mirage Gate. It plays 4 Water, 3 Psychic, 2 Lightning. So you should always have Mirage Gate targets, even if it's not the perfect one. Then you also play Capture Energy to get going early. And then you also have the 3 other attackers. You can attack with the Radiant Ninja as well because of the water energy. But you have Ice Cube, which means it's immune to basics, which is really good. It only does 70 damage, which isn't great. But being immune to basics can just win you games. If you're against a deck like this, Damir, you probably it's probably a stalemate maybe with Ice Cube. It's immune to damage, not effects though. So something like Sableye could KO it. And then you also have some. You have oh wait, I think I thought Lumineon V was an attacker. You got Raikou V here. If it's inactive, you draw a card. But then it's much better effect. It just does same as Suicune, same as Entei. The Baby Palkia card, you do 20 plus 20 per bench Pokemon, so decent damage. Solid V, and of course, if you have you're against a Pokemon with lightning weakness like Palkia. Sorry, I don't think Kyurem has Palkia weakness. Or sorry, has the same weakness as Palkia, which is lightning. Yeah, it's weak to metal, but Raikou still one-shots Palkia, which is good. We see switched card just a switch that heals, which is fine. It's fine. Nothing crazy there, but I mean, the deck's pretty cool, honestly, but nothing completely mind-blowing. Still cool list. We got Giratina here, and this one. Okay, yeah, I looked at this one as well earlier, and I really like this list. It only plays 1 Sableye, 1 Cramorant, but that's fine because you have the 4/3 Giratina, and you have a Leafeon V, which has the. I'll click on this, I guess. Greening cells. You search your deck for a Grass Energy attached to one of your Pokemon, and then your turn ends. So turn 1, you use that. Get going, get the Grass Energy. Still plays an equal split of Grass and Psychic. I'm wondering a bit why it's Leafeon V over the Zacian V, which is Psychic. Accelerates Psychic Energy with the same thing where you end your turn, but it doesn't really matter. They're both equally good. You save, you use the Grass, so you save your Psychic, so you can use Sableye. If you want, you play Zacian, you probably play 4 Grass and 6 Psychic. So maybe they want to stick with the equal amounts. It doesn't matter too much. Normal Comfy, Sableye, Cramorant, but the Leafeon allows you to attach, accelerate, in the next turn, attach again, get going, attacking turn 2, pretty consistently. No Hisuian Heavy Ball, but that's fine. To get this stuff out of the prices. Not too bad though. See another Palkia and Inteleon list. This one also plays Canceling Cologne and the Inteleon Rare Candy, which is, yeah, as I said, I still find that weird. I'm not quite sure why it plays Canceling Cologne, but pretty straightforward here. Yeah, sorry. Give me a. In Canceling Cologne, it's only the opponent's active has no abilities, so you can use. They still have like damage reduction and I guess immunity and stuff from attacks, not abilities. But anyway, pretty standard Palkia and Inteleon. We got this Giratina deck here, which plays 2 Cramorant, which is really interesting. You can go early, hard early on the Cramorant, and it plays an Ordinary Rod and Cramorant. so you can go with Cramorant for a long time, and Sableye as well, so you can play it as a single price deck, kind of. You can also use Thornton, which will allow you to switch a basic from your discard, as I said, with one in play, and so you can use one of those single price attackers again, or if you're in a board state where you don't have any Giratinas, you can pop a Giratina from nowhere. That's why it plays up 3-2 Giratina, and also for some reason Giratina V-Star and Giratina V aren't recognized as an evolution line in Limitless, so that's why it's in a switched order, which is kind of funny, but Giratina, you can kind of pop that out of nowhere. You will still need a Mirage Gate and an attachment. But, we also see Water Energy, which I'm pretty sure hasn't been in other Giratina lists. I'm not sure. But it allows you to attack with Radiant Greninja. Still a bit awkward. You probably won't have the Water Energy in hand, so you'll need to probably double Mirage Gate or do some other interesting combo. But still really good because now you can go on with this spread, so you can hit with Cramorant, you can hit with Sableye, Radiant Greninja, and kind of weaken your opponent's board state with all these single prizers, or going with Giratina. It's probably you're probably not going to be mixing them up all the time, but together they'll be really good as like two parallel decks. We see another Arceus Aggron deck here, pretty normal. We see a Collapse Stadium this time, and then we also have, you got the Pumpkaboo Metal Double Turbo plus Capture this time. You see how much special energy there is right now. It's not anything crazy, but the decks play some special energy. Yeah, Raihan, normal stuff. And Goons as well to make sure you can do more with Aggron. Then you also got the Arceus and Inteleon here. And okay, this is really interesting. And really strong. You got Arceus V-Star with the 280 health, Big Charm giving you 30 more, and Radiant Gardevoir saying all your Pokemon, which includes your Vs, take 20 less from your opponent's Pokemon V. And that's insane. Because you can just go in and have like 330 health, which is so much right now. You see the 3 Sharon's Care, the Rods, no like healing other than Sharon's Care, which I guess makes sense. They're playing the 70 HP Sobble as well, which I haven't seen in a while. Is it good? It could be. Keep Calling isn't really something you want to do with this list, honestly. Keep Calling, if you also have an Arceus, is okay, I guess. But then you need to hit your one of Melanie, which is kind of awkward. And so they're just choosing to go with more health, and that's fair, especially with the Sableye, which is able to KO 2 Sobbles in one turn, and removing that option could be really good and could win you the game. So that's a really interesting thing. I think it's really interesting that people are searching the 70 HP Sobble. Looking at our last tournament here, and wow, there's a lot of Palkia. This looks pretty normal, honestly. We see the Marnies and less Iridas and stuff. Nothing crazy, though. And yeah, just double checking. Looks pretty normal. Pretty obviously normal. Palkia is still really strong. We see this list. This list plays Tool Jammer, which I thought was like a staple. I guess it's not anymore. Honestly, Tool Jammer's not that good, but pretty normal stuff. We see Cross Switcher, which it might have been in all the Palkia lists. It might not have. It probably wasn't only one boss, but you got the Cross Switcher. This is honestly exactly what Palkia looked like before. So not too much change in Palkia. This displays a Crabominal V, which is fine. Crabominal is kind of cool. Especially that's why they played probably the Zigzagoon. Only 2 nets, so and then this Inteleon, you can just do Crabominable, pop it out of nowhere, and just get early KOs. It's a decent amount of HP on a Pokemon V, and only plays 3 Irida. Probably just to cut space. Plays a Raihan as well. Giratina here now, and yeah, so this one has this is the same list, I think. The double Cramorant, got the Thornton, Sableye, Radiant Greninja, Water Energy. I think there might be some changes. See Lost Vacuum here. Lost Vacuum is such a good card. Or just a very decent, balanced, but still strong card that can obviously lost on your opponent's cards, but can lost on your own cards too. Like your own Stadium or your own tool. It doesn't play many tools, only 2 Air Balloon, but you can lost on one. and that accounts for less cards you have to get now in the Lost Zone for Star Requiem, so can get an earlier V-Star attack there. We see another Kyurem Palkia list. We might have seen this one before. Gazzy and Empoleon, which is really good. This one does play Rotom Phone, so that's really good with Oranguru, great synergy, or you can just stack the water straight on there and use the Kyurem to accelerate it. So quite strong. And now we got another Palkia and Teleon. A lot of Palkia and Teleon here, looks like. Very strong, though. Great showing. You see Collapse Stadium, which is really crazy, honestly, because you want both players to have a massive bench for Palkia to hit as much damage as you can. I'm wondering why that's in there. Maybe it's a surprise pick. Online tournaments generally open deck lists, but like on ladder, if your opponent's doing some deck, you can just pop this down. Maybe attack with Radiant Greninja or Nako for the KO a turn, and get them stuck where they can't use their big attacker and instead have to, because they were planning on playing it next turn, you can kind of get them stuck, which is interesting. I don't know if that's why it's there, but it's really interesting. It also has Echoing Horn, so you can get your opponent locked up nicely, I guess, which is kind of cool. And can also be good in the Palkia Mirror, I guess. So obviously, you're both going for the same thing. This looks like I think the same, or pretty much the same, Lost Zone box. We got all the same attackers. The Sableye, though, being really good to counter Sombles, as I said. Echoing Horn could be interesting in the deck, or some way of devolving your opponent's Pokemon. It doesn't really matter. It's still really good. And then we got the last deck we're looking at here is a Kyurem Palkia list. Got the Empoleon, as I said. No Rotom Phone, no Barrel. So I'm wondering how well this deck sets up and how consistent it is. But obviously we saw so much Palkia, still a bunch of Mew. The meta's looking really cool, though, especially the Lost Zone decks. Gonna take a quick look, see if there's anything really cool. There probably isn't, unfortunately. It's hard to tell from a quick glance, but, pretty standard stuff. Oh, wow, this tournament was really big. Wow, okay. But, so, yeah, you saw the meta, what it looks like there. Lots of Palkia, lots of new stuff. Right, I'm going to go back to the decks here. Apparently there's lots of Mew, but it's not performing as well. Yeah, you see Mew here. We can look at win rates. Palkia, really good win rate. Giratina, good win rate. Kyurem Palkia, really good win rate. Any other decks with really high win rates that have enough plays? Most of these decks don't have many plays, but we see Arceus Aggron doing really well, which is really crazy. Arceus Giratina, so you still see Arceus at the top of this. Palkia, though, I don't really know what this Palkia thing is. I'm going to take a quick look at this. Looks like it's Palkia Mew, yeah. So it's Palkia Mew toolbox. So Palkia is still really good. Arceus really good. We see this Cramorant deck, which is the Lost Zone deck, and the Lost Zone deck here. So you see really interesting meta, some really cool decks. This Clefairy Basket Legion deck, really cool. I will be releasing a video on this, hopefully, at some point. But some really cool decks. Lost Zone decks, really cool. I want to make a video on that and certainly mess around with that. And I'm really excited. Comment down below what you've been enjoying from this set and any suggestions for decks you have for me to play. And I'm really excited to keep going with this. I'm really excited to see you in the next video.